Hi and welcome to the third part of this video series. In this part we're going to make it possible for users to create clients and also see the details of the client and edit the details of the clients as well. So first we're going to create a new Django app where we're going to create the models and similar for the clients. So in the terminal I have stopped the web server. And to create the app I first create an app. Now I first create a folder, mkdir apps. This is a folder where I want to store all of the apps for this project. And then I need to create a folder for the app, mkdir apps/client. And to create the actual Django app, I say python manage.py start app, and then the name of the app, which is client, and then the location, which is apps/client, and hit enter. And then I need to tell Django that this app actually exists, so I need to find the settings.py file. And inside the list of installed apps, I can append it to the bottom, apps.client, and save. So now Django knows that this app exists. So if I now go into apps, find client, and into the models, this is where I want to store that information. So first I want to import a thing from Django. From django.contrib.auth.models import user, because I want a client to be connected to a certain user. And then I create the class client, pass in models.model, and this is now a database model. In here I want to add fields which will describe to Django what kind of data we want to store about the different clients. First I add name equals models.char field. This is just a regular data field for storing simple things as name and similar. And I want email equals models.email field. This is something Django has built in, so we know that here you can only store emails. And then I have a char field for org number, which is organization number. Maybe you call it something different in your country, but this is the official number for the client. And I set this to blank equals true and null equals true in case a client doesn't have this. And I also add 5 more of this char field, which is address 1, address 2, zip code, place, and country. So I can store all of that information on the client. And I want one more char field for storing contact person, so I know who I can contact with this client. And one field for reference, so I know what to set on the different invoices. And then I want a field for referencing the user. I call this created by, so I know who created this client. This is a foreign key, which is just something we use to get relations in the database. Pass in the user model just imported and set the related name to clients. So it's very easy to get all the clients for one certain user. And if you delete the user, you want to call model.cascade, which means that you also delete all of that user's clients. And the last field I want here is a field called created at, so that I know when this client was added to the database. I passed in a parameter called auto_now_add equals true. That means that when we save this, it will be automatically filled in by Django. So now I can save this, and then I can update the database. To do that, I say python manage.py make migrations. This will create a migrations file. And to run the migrations file, I say python manage.py migrate. And then I have a new model or table in the database called client. Perfect. And the last thing I want to do here now is to go into admin.py and just tell the admin interface that we have a new model. So first we need to import from .models import client. And then register it by saying admin.site register and passing client and save. So if you now log into the admin interface, you will see this model there. So then I can set this to done, and The next task was also to add a few test clients. And to make it possible to log into the admin interface, I need to create a super user. So to do that, we say Python manage.py, create super user, and then I create a username, admin@invoicely.com, and a password. And then I can run the development server. And if I now just copy this address, go to the browser and go to /admin, I can log in here with the user I just created. And as you can see here now, we have the users and groups and tokens, which is generated automatically. And we also have clients. So let's make it possible to add the client. Client as a code, because this belongs to the code user I created in the previous part. Test email@gmail.com. And I don't have to fill out this right now. And then I can connect this to the code@code.com user. And I can create one more. Test client testing yo@gmail.com. And I connect this to the testing@example.com and save. Great, so now we have two clients in the database. As you can see here, we only see an object representation of the client. So it's much easier if you can see the title or the name of the client. To do that, we can add metadata. And to do that, I just need to add a string representation of the model. So if I just go back here and say def__str and pass in self, return, %s, and self.name. So if I now save, refresh, you will see the title or the name of the client instead of the object. Perfect. So then I can set the next task to done. Before I continue, I just want to say thanks to my Patreons. If you too want to support me, you will find a link to my Patreon in the description below. And now we want to create a serializer file for the clients. A serializer helps us get information from the database and convert it to JSON so we can present it to the API. So if I just scroll up and find a client folder, and in here I create a new file called serializers.py. First, I import serializers from REST framework. This is used to convert data. And then I need to import the model we created from .models import client. And I can say .models because we are in the same folder as this model file where the client or the model is created. And then I create a new class, call it client serializer. It's always good practice to just call it serializer so you know that this is a serializer class. And then we pass in serializers.model serializer. In here we create a new class called meta, so we can change the parameters for this class. Set model equals client, so we know which model to use. And we want a list of read-only fields because these are not supposed to be changed by the user. So created at and created by. So this is a tuple. And I don't need to add the ID here because this is automatically done by Django because ID is not a field you're supposed to be touching. And the list of fields we want to get from the database and present to the API. And this is the ID, the name, email, org, and all the other fields we created, except for these three because we don't want to show these in the front end anywhere anyways. So then I can save this and I can go back here and set this task to done. And then I want to create a view for getting the client where I use this serializer file. So I can just go into views.py, then I can import the serializer from .serializers, import client serializer, and I can import the model we created from .models, import client, And I also need to import something from REST framework called view sets, which helps us create the views. And the views are the thing we are used to present the data. So then I create a new class called client viewset and pass in viewsets.model viewset. And then I select which serializer class I want to use, and that is the serializer we created. And which query set we are going to use. Here we use just client.objects.all, so we get all from the database. But this means that the user gets all the clients if it's not, even if it isn't the one who you created. So we need to fix this. And to do that, we need to create a function or override function called getQuerySet. So we override this. And then we just say return self.querySet. So we get this, but we filter it with created by equals self.request.user. And this is automatically set by the API when we sign in or log in. So that's it for now. I'm going to change a little bit on this later in this part. And then I want to create a URLs file separate for the client. So in here I create a new file by saying urls.py and import from Django.urls import path and include. And I want to import a router from REST framework.routers import default router. And I want to import the client view set we just created from the .views file. And then I create an instance of the default router called router. And then I append the client's route to this and set that we're going to use the client view set. Base name is client, so we get API/v1/client to get this data. And then we just create a new URL patterns like this, which is a list. And we can just say path empty, and when it is, we say include router.urls, and then the Django REST framework will fix this for us. So then we can save this, and then we just need to import this in the main URLs file, which is located in Invoicely there, urls.py. And at the bottom here, I can say path API v1/include. And here we just say apps.client.urls. And that is the path to the file we just created. And everything still seems to be okay. Perfect. So then I can set this task to done. Now we're going on to the view part. So here I want to create a new page for showing the clients. So inside this dashboard folder, I create a new file, clients.view. I'm beginning with a very simple template and the div class page clients and the columns with is multi-line. And then I just add one column which fills out the whole screen with the title clients. Then we can add a script tag, name is clients. Data, I can just create this and set this to be empty, return. And I can also say import Axios from Axios because I know I'm going to use this very soon, and save. And then I need to go into the router/index.js and import my view here, the new view clients. And if I just scroll down to dashboard, I can make a copy of this. Dashboard/clients. And I want it to be called clients, and the component is also clients. And then before we can test this, I just need to go into app.view and up in the menu next to the dashboard link, create a new one to dashboard/clients, give the class navbar item and label clients and save. So if I now go to the browser and I can log in with the user from yesterday, and then I'm logged in. If I click client, I will see the client's title. Perfect. So now it's time to get the clients from the database and show them here. So let's go back to the client.vue there. And up here below this column, I add this code. A div with the class column is 3. And here I want to loop through a list of clients, and I also need to bind the key to client.id so that every div is unique. In here I add a div class box, which is a class from Bulma, and a small title with MB4, which means margin bottom 4. So I have a little bit space between this title and the button below. And then I also need to go into the data array here, create a new property, clients, which is a list, it can just be empty. And we want to go into one of the life cycles of Vue called mounted. And when you are mounted, I want to call this function this.getClients. And I also need to create that inside this methods object, get clients. And here I want to say Axios. And here I say .get API v1/clients. And this will give me a little response back. And when I get the response, I go into this function. And here I just loop through the data I get from the response, which is a list. And for every item in that list, I just push the whole object into this.clients, because this is JSON, so it can just be pushed right into the list. And if there are any errors, I just want to console log them and save. So if I now go back to the browser, you will actually see client code, because this client belongs to me. Perfect. So now I can actually set this task to done. Next step now is to make it possible to view details of the clients. So I can begin by creating a new file inside the dashboard called client.vue. And I can begin with the empty template and the script name client. And up in the template, paste a little bit of code. First the normal page client, and a div class columns with isMultiline. And I have a simple column for the title, which is client.name. So here will the client's name show. I will come back to how we get this. And up here I can first import Axios, and then I can create the data function, return client, which is an object. Save, and then I can go into router.js and import this client function, no client page. And this is the first time we need to use something called the dynamic route. So after clients I say /:id. So now this is a dynamic part of the URL. Change the name to client and the component to client and save. And then I want to go back to clients.vue, and instead of having this button just say details, I change it to be a router link to, and you can see that this is now binding, so I can use JavaScript in here. And I want the view, I want to use the name client with the parameters ID and client.id, which we get from the list of clients. And I set the class, the button is light, and then I show just the title details. So if I save now and go back to the browser, I can click details, and up here in the address you will see that it's appended 1, which is the ID for this client. So now we just need some functionality in here to get the data about the client from the database. So we need to call the mounted lifecycle this.getClient. Then I create that method as well. Methods getClient. First I create a variable called client ID, and I get the this.route params.id. This will get the ID from the URL, since we declared it as :id in the router index file. And then I say Axios.get API v1 clients, and then I pass in the client ID here. So this will give me the detailed information back from the database. And I use these, I don't know what these are called, but it makes it possible to add variables inside them. And after this, I get a response back. And the response is created a fat arrow function, and then I just add this.client equals response.data. So I don't have to think more about it, it's JSON data. And then I just add a little catch error. So now this should work. So if I go back here now, you will see that it's showing the title of the client. Perfect. But I want to show a little bit more information up here. So I create a new column and say add a subtitle, contact details, where I show the name. And if we have the address 1, we show the address 1, and same goes on with the other fields. So I can just save this, go back, and you see the name of the client here. Perfect. So now I can set this task to done, and now it's time to make it possible to add new clients using Vue. And to do this, we need one more page. So inside the dashboard, create a new file, add client.vue, add a template, script, name, add client, and we can also import Axios from Axios, like that. And I also know that I'm going to use the data array, return, like that. And also we can add these methods like that. In here I can add a client, just add empty object like that, and then add a little information up in the template. Change the page to add client, is multi-line, and just show the title add client so we can test this. So then I need to go into router.index.js and import the new view we created, add client, and go down to clients and copy this. And when you go to client/add, I want to call add clients. And then the last thing we need to do is to go into clients.vue, and below this title I add this. So this goes to add client, the name of the view, add some classes and a little bit space above the button up to the title. So if we save this now, go back here. Okay, there is something wrong. Add client is not defined, of course not. It's supposed to be add client. And save. So now it looks better, and I have a new button here, add client, and then the title, add client. Perfect. So now you just need to add the form here so we can send information back to the server. So inside add client, below here, I create a div class column. I can copy this 3 times. This is supposed to be 12. And then I want to divide the fields by 4 fields and 3 fields, and then the button below. So inside here, I want a field for the name. So this is just normal Bulma, and the V model is connected to this object and .name. And it's just a simple input type text. And name, and class input, which is a class from Bulma, so it looks a little bit pretty. And then below the name, I have the same one just for email. The difference is here I use type email so we can have validation on it. And then below here, I want 2 fields for address 1 and address 2. And in the next column, because if I save now, you'll see that I have this, and I want the rest of the fields here. So here I created 3 fields, 1 for the zip code, 1 for the place, and 1 for the country. So if I save now again, you will see that it's showing all of the 7 fields we need to fill out. And then inside this last column, I had the div class field with the control and a button, which when you click it will call a function or method called submit form. And we also need to add this here. It can just be empty for now, so we can test and see that it looks great. And it does. Perfect. So now we need to make this send information back to the server. And it's actually just a simple Axios.post, and this posts to clients. And the backend now knows that when you post something to clients, it should create an object and not update and similar, because then you will have to use, for example, patch, which I will come back to later. And we just pass in this whole object, which gets information from this form automatically. And when we get the response back, we call this router and push, so we'll be redirected back to the client's page. So everything here on the Vue side is now finished. I just need to go into Django and make a little change, because if I try to save now, I will get an error because the created by isn't filled out. So we need to use this, need to invoke and change this a little bit here in the client view set. And to do that, I override a function called def perform create. And here I just call serializer.save, and then I set created by to self.request.user and save. So now it should be possible to create new clients. Client number 2, the email at email.com, and I don't want to fill this out for now. Submit, and then I was redirected back here, and we have a new client number 2. Perfect. So then I can go back to the to-do list, and I can set this task as well to done. So then the last task of this part is to make it possible to edit information about the clients. And then I need to go into the dashboard folder again, new file, edit client.vue. And I can just copy most of this data from the add client because they're very similar. Paste it, and I can change the title to edit, and then we can show the client.title up here, and the form can just be as it is, because this will fill out automatically. You can change the button to save changes, and this also can be changed to edit client. And I need to just remove this post because this needs to be a patch instead. So here I just paste this .patch, and it goes to the same address as earlier, but instead of a post we use patch, which then the backend knows that we just update the data. And when that's done, we just be redirected back to the clients list. But we need to declare this. So const client ID equals this route.param, no route, not router, params.id. And we also now need to make it possible to get the information about this client. So here we can copy the function from client.vue. Just copy this whole function, paste it in, add a comma there, so it's a list of functions. And we also need to use the mounted lifecycle hook. This.get client, and a comma there as well. And then I think the only thing that's missing is to go to router and import edit client, from /views dashboard /edit client.vue. And we also need to append it at the bottom here, this one, make a copy of this and append edit there. Now we can set edit before and edit like that. Save. So if I now just go into client.vue, you want to add the button for this below the title. So we have a router link to the name edit client and pass in client.id. If I now just save this go to the browser, can go into client number 2, click edit, and now you see this information is already filled out, but the title isn't showing there because it's supposed to be client.name and not title. And you see if I change it here, the title up here will also change. So the last thing I want to do now is to make a little change on the backend, because if you somehow now manage to change the ID, you would be able to change someone else's clients. So we need to change the permissions. And to do that, I go up and find views.py inside the client app folder. And then I need to import something from Django core exceptions, which is a permissions denied message. And then I can invoke the perform update just like I did with the create. First I just get the object so it's a little bit cleaner, this function. And then I check that if the user isn't the one who created the object, then you're not supposed to be able to change or save it. And then I call erase permission denied and we show this message instead. But if you are the one who created, you will go down here and you can say serializer.save and everything should then be okay. So if I now just refresh, change this to 2 or 3, changed, save changes, and I redirected back here and you can see this was saved. Perfect. And that was it for this part. You can now add clients, change clients and view information about them. In the next part of this series, I will make it possible to change a little bit information about your company, set the initial invoice number and a little bit things like that. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please click like below. And if you want notification when the next part is published, you need to subscribe to my channel and also remember to click the bell. So see you next time.